Hi, everyone. Welcome. We are talking about this month, the month of Tevet. So we have coming up this week a fast, the fast, the 10th of Tevet. And why is there a fast on the 10th of Tevet? So on the 10th of Tevet was when Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, besieged Jerusalem. 2.5 years he besieged it before he broke through and broke the walls and then eventually destroyed the temple on the 9th of Av. So this is a fast day because of the besieging of Jerusalem before the destruction of the temple. It's a very unique fast in certain ways. There is an opinion that says that if this fast would fall out on Shabbat, that you would still fast, even though it doesn't actually happen because the way we have the calendar set, we don't do the calendar anymore based on the testifying of witnesses for the new moon. So it won't fall on Shabbat. It will fall on Friday this year, and we fast actually until nightfall. But if it fell on Shabbat, so the Abu Drama says that you would still fast, which is very strange because other fasts you don't. Even Tisha B'Av, you don't fast on Shabbat. Only other time you fast on Shabbat would be on Yom Kippur. Why? Let's have to see why is it so strict in that way. Talk about that. That's the first thing I want to discuss. So I want to discuss is that this month, the whole month. Oh, I'm sorry. There are other reasons to fast also. So that's the 10th of Tevet. In halacha there are two other sad days that are right next to the 10th of Tevet, 8th and the 9th, and there are other reasons we fast. Okay, I want to discuss those also. On the 8th of Tevet, it says that that's when Talmi forced the 70 elders to translate the Torah into Greek. The Septuagint, as it's called, was done and completed on the 8th of Tevet. Now, the world thought that was a good thing. It says the Jews in Egypt thought it was a positive thing. Well, we now could have in our language, in the language we understand. The sages said when it happened, 3 days of darkness descended to the world. It's a very bad thing. So there is a custom amongst righteous people. It's brought in halacha to fast on the 8th also, if possible. Not an obligation like the 10th, but it's a meritorious thing to do. But it's a little strange to me because when Moshe gave the Torah in Devarim, it says there he translated the 70 languages. So why would the translating of the Torah be such a bad thing that darkness came down to the world for 3 days when we would see that Moshe translated 70 languages? The sages tell us because of that we can learn Torah in all languages. So why is it so bad over there? Another thing that happened is on the 9th of Tevet, so it's like a 3-day in a row, 9th of Tevet, something else very bad happened. It is brought down that Ezra, who brought us back to build the second temple, he died in that day. According to many commentaries, his colleague, the great Nehemiah, who also led the Jews back, during the Second Temple time, also died that day. So I want to explain a little bit why. There are various fast days, great people that died, but not every great person that died they make a fast day for. I want to talk a little bit of Ezra to explain how that fits in Ezra's death with the idea of Tevet. Okay, so that's the we need to discuss there. Also, one thing about Tevet is very unique, which is that normally you have a month and you have a holiday in the month, and the holiday in that month represents the idea. So let's say you have Purim. Purim is in the month of Adar. Adar has a whole ambiance, a whole atmosphere about Adar. Okay, here Hanukkah falls in 2 months. The commentators say that's very strange because Hanukkah should have a certain month, but it doesn't. It has Kislev, and then it also has Tevet. Not only that, it has Rosh Chodesh Tevet, which is strange because usually Rosh Chodesh, the new month, is not actually a secondary holiday. Even though it does happen in Rosh Hashanah, but it's different because there it's subsumed into Rosh Hashanah. Here you have Hanukkah and you have the new month of Tevet. So why does Hanukkah kind of leak in from Kislev into Tevet and include there the Rosh Chodesh, the new month of Tevet? Let's see that also. So let's understand a little bit what it says in the Sefer Yetzirah, the mystical work credited to Avraham Avinu, to Abraham, about some of the aspects of this month of Tevet. So when each month has its astrological sign, this is called Capricorn, and Hebrew it's Gedi, which is a goat. It's a goat. And the action that is associated with the month of Tevet is Rogez, which means anger. Okay. Now we know every month has a tribe. Which tribe lines up with this month of Tevet? So we're going according to the system that lines at how they traveled in the desert. And this month of Tevet would line up with the tribe of Dan. Okay. Now we need to understand a little bit about that, understand about, tribe of Dan and what these aspects how they all tie together. Okay, now one other thing I want to share about this month, a little bit of a mystical point, but you have to understand this. So the mystics tell us that all of the world really comes out from different permutations of the letters, Torah, and specifically the name of God, name of Hashem, for the Tetragrammaton. So every month has a permutation of the four-letter name of God that is the power of that month. Okay, so it's a four-letter name, but two of the letters are the same. So the Hey there's two Heys. So if you permeate it, you can get 12 different combinations of the order of these four letters because there's only really three unique letters. Okay, so it was a little mystical, but let's try to get to one point. So there's a verse that lines up with each one of the permutations for the month. So what's the month of Tevet? The month of Tevet is the verse Galil Hashem iti, let us praise God and we will sing his name together. And the last letters of that verse, of the part Hashem iti, Rom Mashmo, are the four letters of God's name, but they're written backwards. Let me explain what this means a second. So for example, when we talk about the four-letter names of God, we say we want to connect the Yud-K, the beginning aspect, with the Vav-K, the last two letters of God's name, which is our job. Our job is in this world, we take the lower aspects that connect to our actions and connect it to the root to express God in the world. So here, the letters come out, Hey, Yud. So the Yud and the Hey is backwards. The Hey is before the Yud. And then the last letter, Ma Hey, and now will be a Vav. So instead of where the Yud is at first before the Hey, and then the Vav is before the second Hey, here it's backwards. You have a Hey, and then a Yud, and then a Hey, and then a Vav. So it's backwards. What does that mean? So the sages tell us that the permutation of God's name represents how the month will express itself. When it goes in the proper order, it's considered to be rachamim, compassion, kindness, chesed. When it goes backwards, you don't see you're reading it seems to be in not the right order. It represents the idea of this month is judgment. Okay. So this month is very strong judgment because of the Yud and the Hey and the Vav, Yud and the Vav and the Hey. They're both backwards. Now, there's one other month that it also goes backwards in the same type of way, and that is the month of Tammuz. There, it'll go Hey, Vav, and then Hey, Yud. It's also backwards. Now, the month of Tammuz is considered to be also a tremendously a strong month of judgment. So much so, it's probably considered the most judgment, except for maybe this one, Tevet. And a lot of bad things happen in the month of Tammuz. That's when the spies went through Israel came back with a bad report. That's therefore when the golden calf happened and the tablets were broken. And the whole month of Tammuz is therefore very bad. The next month, Av, which we know that's a very bad month. That's when the temple was destroyed. The truth is, if you look at the letters of God's name that permeate that month, the first two are back, which the second two are in the right order. And the sages tell us why is that? Because until the middle of the month, the 15th of the month, it's judgment. But by the 15th of the month, on Tu B'Av, it turns into chesed, turns into kindness. So really, Tammuz is like the harshest month, not Av. Av only the beginning, it's not the second month. Now, how does the month of Tammuz, where the tablets were broken, the golden calf happened, a lot of other terrible things that happened on the 17th of Tammuz, as recorded by it's a fast day, it's 5 terrible things that happened then. Why is that, and many others, but why is that lined up, or how is that lined up with the month of Tevet? So let me explain this. The 12 months of the year really are broken up, like everything, into male, female. There's 6 male months and there's 6 female months that parallel them. Okay? So for example, if you start in the month of Tishrei, the great month of Tishrei when we have Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Sukkot, and you parallel that to 6 months later, you will come to the month of Nisan, the month of redemption. And that's 2 different powers. And that's the first in both senses. Tishrei, the world was created. Nisan is where the Jewish people became a nation. As an argument in Talmud, when will the Mashiach come? In Tishrei or in Nisan? The world was created, and they're both 2 sides of the same coin, which is not for now, but they line up. And then the next second month of each lines up, and the third month of each lines, and the 4th month of each lines up. So if you count the 4th month of the side, which is called the male side, it's going to be Tevet, and that is going to parallel Tammuz. So Tevet and Tammuz are really 2 sides of the same coin. They are both the idea of tremendous judgment, tremendous din, and one is considered to be on the male side, one is considered to be on the female side. Now, to understand this further, what it means that Tevet is a month of din, we have to sort of get into a little bit understanding the quality of the tribe of Dan. Okay, the word Dan, it means judgment. It means literally to judge. As a matter of fact, if you start to understand now, we said earlier, what was the trait that was lined up this month? It was Rogens, which was anger. It was Capricorn, which is Gedi. In every place in the Torah, the goat is compared to Esav. Esav, the hairy goat. And Se'irim Raktu, it says that the negative forces dance like the goat. So this has a very strong negative power, and we're going to try to understand it today or tonight, when you're listening, according to the tribe of Dan, because the tribe of Dan, in a certain way, is called the lowest of the tribes. When Moshe says, he gives rebuke in the book of Devarim, he says, maybe there is a family or a shevet or an entire nation that is not going to go into the covenant and thinks I'm going to do whatever I want to do, I'll be okay. And the sages say that was referring to the tribe of Dan, because they were the ones who put idolatry in the Jewish people. The Pesel, the statue of Micha, the idolatry that was set up by the people of Dan. They brought idolatry into Jewish people, and therefore they were considered in some way the lowest of the Jewish people. Even when the tribes split, the 2 tribes and the 10 tribes, so years later when they had the kingdom and the 10 tribes were set up, we know that the king of the 10 tribes, Yerovam ben Nevat, he said, I'm going to set golden calves, idols, in different places in the 10 tribes. He set up one in the southern part and one he set up in Dan, because the area for Dan was that area of idolatry. That's who they were. That was a problem. Now, not only that, when they traveled in the desert, So it says that Dan were in the back. Okay, there was different ways we used to travel, um, different opinions of how they traveled, but they there's different systems of how they walked. But either way, the text tells us that Dan was in the back. Now, there's different aspects to what they were in the back. In one sense, they were in the back. They were some of those who were called pushed out of the clouds of glory. Okay, there were clouds of glory referring to the holy level of Jewish people, and there's some people were dropped out, that were pushed out, and those were those in the back. And who were they? So the sages tell us they were from the tribe of Dan. So this does not look so good for the tribe of Dan at this point. They seem to have a lot of issues going on. So okay, so they're in the back. Now, just on one other point, one of the sages says, Moshe Tata says, he says that, like, it says there are 600,000 Jewish souls, root souls, and the 600,000 letters of the Torah, and every letter lines up with a certain soul. And he says there that when you get to the end, the lower souls will be the ones at the end. And he says that's the tribe of Dan. So much so that the last 8 verses of the Torah, there is a discussion in the Talmud who wrote them. Because Moshe says, it says that Moshe died. So the Gemara says Moshe can't write, he's dead, if he's not dead. So as one opinion says that Yehoshua wrote it. Joshua wrote it. Talmud says that can't be. The Torah had to be given of a whole. So the Gemara gives an answer that Moshe wrote it b'dem. Which one explanation is tears. There are other explanations. One is it's tears, and then Yeshua had to fill it in. So Moshe wrote it like an indelible ink, according to one explanation of sorts, and then you had to fill it in. But that means that according to this one commentary, that the souls of the tribe of Dan were so out of the camp, they were out of the clouds of glory, that they were like, after Moshe died, they were like, in the part that seemed to be out. Moshe dies, and who wrote it? Okay, Moshe wrote it, but there's a discussion about it. Those are those souls of the tribe of Dan. So this is very mind-boggling to understand that a great tribe of Israel can be considered to be the root of the idolatry of the Jewish people, pushed out of the camp. Not so good. Now, there's one other thing about being in the back, which they were when they traveled in the desert. They're in the back. There is a verse that says they were called Ma'aseh Machnos. They were the gatherers of all of the camp. And the simple meaning is because, well, they were in the back. So one opinion is that when anyone lost anything, so Dan were the ones to find it because they were at the end. As a matter of fact, they were a very large tribe. The 2 largest tribes were Yehuda and Dan. Yehuda was in the front, Dan was in the back, and Dan was so much more than the other people that were walking in the back. Like, imagine they're walking like a box, according to one opinion. There's someone here, and Dan's in the back. So there was so much that they wrapped around all of the other tribes they were walking with, because there were so many, and therefore they would gather in anything that was lost. But sages tell us another idea. It says that they gathered in not only things that were lost, but people that were lost. Every person has moments in life where things are going good and moments where they lose themselves, and they need to be gathered in. And somehow Dan had the ability to gather everybody in, even though part of them were pushed out, but they're in the back and they're the gatherers. So, like, the ones who put it all together for the people. Now, I don't understand, how is it possible that they are that low, and yet they're the gatherers for everyone? Let's understand this a little bit. Sometimes a person to really deal with a problematic situation, they enter into that problematic place. You have a situation with somebody where, they've been through something themselves, and so therefore they understand what it's like. Maybe ourselves. You made a mistake, you did something wrong, and you're in that place, and you understand where a person could fall. And therefore, that person can have a lot of empathy and help those that are down. And that really is the quality of Dan. This is what the Baal Tanya says, an amazing thing. He says that there are souls, if you look at like a human body, so there are souls that are called the head, there are souls that are called the eyes, the souls that are called the nose and the mouth. And then there are the souls that are called the feet, the calloused, hard part, the lowest part. Now, that's not a good thing. You don't want to be just the feet. But the truth is, if you take a cell from any place in the body, everything's contained in that cell. And therefore, you can clone, so to speak, the person from any part of the body because it's all one unit. And therefore, even though Dan is in a certain sense the lowest of the tribes, he also has the ability as the lowest to elevate himself to be part of the system and be one with the whole system. And therefore he can gather anyone that falls out, anyone that gets pushed out. He knows where they're coming from, and he's part of the whole system. And that's how the Tanya explains the idea that a person, even if you're the lowest aspect, you can elevate yourself in the aspect that you're in. So Don has to deal with the physical world, he has to deal with the lowest aspect. That's his quality, but that's going to be his greatness. And let's see a second here, the most famous leader of Don. Who was that? So it's interesting because the two ends of this spectrum are Dan as the lowest and Yehuda as the head. Yehuda was the great, he was the king, and Dan was the lowest. And if you look, you see the amazing thing. The two of the great leaders from both of these tribes did certain things that were strange. It looked like they were doing something very negative. They were going to a low place. They were doing the opposite. Who were the two people? Well, on the side of Yehuda, it was Shlomo. King Shlomo, it says he was the wisest of all men. A lot of commentators say, how can he be the wisest of all men? He doesn't know more than Moshe. So one explanation is that he went into the darkest places to fix them up more than anybody else. More than anyone understood before him. He looked at all the things he wanted to see through evil, see where it's not true, and pull out the good. And therefore, he did something strange. He married many, many women who weren't Jewish. Now, because he converted them and they became Jewish, and the idea was they were going to spread Torah to all the four corners of the earth. He married the princesses of every tribe. But that's what he did. And it looked very strange. He was marrying all these princesses from, he married Bat Paro, the daughter of Paro, and all these things. The leader of Dan, who had a similar system, was Shimshon. Shimshon was the great leader of the tribe of Dan. And it looks very bizarre what he's doing. He sees these women, he said, and these Philistine women, he says, not that for me. My eye sees them, and he wants them. Yashrai, she's good in my eyes. And it says, the parents are like, what are you doing? What's going on? Why are you marrying this Philistine woman? And then the verse says that they didn't know it was from Hashem. That, and the commentaries say they converted too, however we understand, but the point was that he was doing actions that didn't look right. He was dealing with women who seemed to be completely against everything we stood for. But the truth was it wasn't. He was pulling something great out. That was the quality of Shimshon, the leader of Dan, as it was Shlomo, the king who built the base of Migdash for the tribe of Yehuda. That was the quality of Dan. Now, that's an amazing thing, because it says that there's different blessings that were given to the tribes. Yaakov gave blessings, and then blessings were given by Moshe at the end of the Torah. So what did Yaakov compare Dan to? He called him a nachash al derech. He's a snake. Snakes don't have so good connotation for us, but he was the positive snake. It says he would bite the heel of the horse and make him fall backwards. Talmud says that a horse is a ohev's nus. He loves a lewdness, and the snake is the one that has venom, and he removes that evil from the world. And that really is Dan. Dan is judgment. Even though he's dealing with some negative things, he has the judgment to go and to say, hey, this is no good. And that was Shimshon. Doesn't look right because he's dealing with messy stuff. When you deal with messy stuff, you start to get stuff on yourself. But he's like the snake that bites the lewd horse and makes him fall backwards. That was the quality of the judgment of Dan. That's what he did. And that's fascinating, though, because in the blessing of Yaakov, he's called a snake. But in the blessing of Moshe, he's called a lion. That's interesting. Because who is known as the lion? Lion is the king. He's the king of the animals, king of the jungle, king of the animals. Who is he always compared to a lion? Yehuda, who was the king. And yet Moshe also calls Dan a lion. And the answer is because, yes, he is. The lion has a front and he has a back. He has a head and he has a tail, but it's still one lion. And therefore, in one aspect, Dan is the judgment for people doing negativity. But in his elevated state, then he becomes part of the lion. And that's really the deeper meaning the sages tell us. It says when the tabernacle was built, there were people taken from two tribes to build it. There was Betzalel and Oholiav. Betzalel was from Yehuda, and Oholiav was from Dan. Well, why did Hashem pick those two tribes in particular? Because it was the top and the bottom. And the sages tell us a deep thing. When you connect the top and the bottom, it becomes a circle. So we take the top, the bottom, we unite them, and now we've made a circle. And in a circle, all things are equidistant. That means once Dan comes to his fulfillment, he is part of the lion. He is brought up the lower part of the world, and everything's equidistant, and kulam kadoshim, everyone's holy. That is the power of Dan, to go into the darkest places, to fight it, and to thereby uproot it and unite with the head of the lion and become the lion. That is what it's about. And that's why also when the temple was built, also Shlomo took from Dan to build the temple, also for the same reason, because Dan and Yehuda are two sides of the same coin. But Dan goes from the anger first of the snake, then he elevates to become part of the lion and elevate the lower people. Now, with that all, we can understand the month of Tevet. We can answer all our questions. So the month of Tevet is a month of judgment. It literally is the darkest time of the year. That's what's happening. And that's really why Hanukkah has to go into Tevet, because Tevet is such a time of judgment. And therefore, the light of Hanukkah has to spread out into this darkness of Tevet, into time of judgment. The 8 candles of Hanukkah represent the time of Mashiach. 8, as we've said many times, refers to beyond nature, the world up to 7. And 8 leads into beyond. So 8 is it says that David will play the 8-stringed harp, another level of the note. It means a new dimension in times of Mashiach. And that is Hanukkah in the darkest hour, pushes us towards the time of redemption and time of light. And that has to come into this dark time of Teves. And that's why, even though normally the holidays are assigned to 1 month, to Kislev, okay, but it has to move in to Teves to protect us in this time of darkness. And that's even why it's amazing. The verse that we said was backwards, right? Galush Amiti, sing praises to God is the verse of Teves. The time of darkness still needs the songs of Hanukkah to elevate it in praises. You can't get stuck in the problem without understanding the reason why the problem is to solve it. And therefore, it behooves us to sing and to praise, which is the goal of Hanukkah. And that's why it straddles both months. Also, let's go back to what we said earlier. So now, this month of Teves, so strange. The fast is coming up. If it were to fall on Shabbos, you fast on Shabbos. So the commentaries say, the Sosler, the Chasam Sofer say, the reason why this is a serious fast because it was the beginning of the problem. The besieging of Jerusalem is the start of it. So yes, the temple was destroyed afterwards, and that's obviously a tremendous tragedy. But when the beginning of a problem starts, that's the whole thing. You got to deal with the problem when it first starts. So the besieging of Jerusalem was the time for us to pray and say, hey, we want to get out of this. Not only that, the Chasam Sofer says that every year when the 10th of Teves comes, it's the beginning, there's a new judgment for that same decision. Just like it was thousands of years ago, when they started to besiege Jerusalem, we could have changed and we could have gotten out of the darkness, and it would have removed the decree to destroy the temple. That's happening every year. So the reason why you're allowed to fast on the 10th of Teves, it didn't fall on Shabbos, was because you're not fasting for only a past problem. You're fasting to prevent a future problem. Get in the very beginning and say, whoa, we're going into a time of darkness, and we got to use our power to pull out. And that's also why I think that the same story about we said there's also a custom to fast on the 8th day for some people, because that's when they translated the Torah. And that was a very bad thing. Darkness came to it. But we said before that Moshe translated to 7 languages. It was a different purpose. Moshe, under his tutelage, was bringing the world into a world of clarity. The sages saw that when Talmi made us translate the Torah into Greek, that was going to be the beginning of the darkness, because they were going to use it for further darkness. So this month of Teves now, which is just sinking us into it, they're taking the Torah and now they're using it for their purposes. And that's also the problem that the great Ezra died. Because Ezra, it says in the Talmud, was so great the Torah could have been given through him as compared to Moshe. But the sages tell us that we didn't merit on the second return to the same miracles that we had in the first time. The first time we came up, Yeshua with Joshua, so we came into the land, and we had miracles, and then we established our own independence. But the second time, because we didn't merit it, we were still in the darkness of the power of the other nations. Yeah, the Persians say, go build it. And the Greeks are involved then, and the Romans are involved. So we still have hovering this darkness of the month of Teves. And that is a strength and a power that we have to understand. That is the power of Dan. When you're in darkness, it's not to wallow in it. It's to say, this is the challenge right now that I could pull out the greatest power from the hardest time. That's when Dan is going to become the lion. And that's when Teves is going to turn to a great month too. And Tammuz will. And that is our goal right now. Let's grab that light of Hanukkah that brought us into Teves and realize this is the beginning of the problem. And when you get to that 10th day of Teves, and that fast day, turn our hearts to say, I don't want to be, the darkness is a cause to push me to pull out. There's the famous idea we said many times, why is it that the Mashiach is born on Tisha B'Av? because the whole idea of a problem is the solution. The only reason why there's an exile is because the goal is redemption. Every time you have a problem, it's not the problem, it's the solution. That's what we're shooting for. When you see the time of darkness, of Teves, that's when you have to realize the light of Hanukkah, the light of the time of redemption, is what we have to push out in this darkest time, and then it will be the greatest illumination possible. Thank you very much.